Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Wednesday night segment of The Outer Realm. We are so grateful to be live here this evening, considering Hurricane Ida. Thankfully, Joe and his family are safe and sound, and the network is up and running in New Orleans. All thank you to him. So we are broadcasting live via the International Public Radio right here on United Public Radio Network, 105.3 FM from beautiful New Orleans. Mind you, not quite sure on the FM part, not sure what it's all doing down there. This evening's segment is fully sponsored by the amazing folks over at Folgers, who sponsor us every single segment. So thank you, Folgers. We love you so much. Tonight, we do welcome back our special guest, Gretchen Cornwall. She will be discussing her book and her research on the life of Mary Magdalene. The Holy Grail? We'll find out. And more, I'm sure. So in order to participate in tonight's show, you're going to have to head over to YouTube and International Public Radio, UFO Gods, Extraterrestrials, and UFO Paranormal Radio. Now, you will have to be on UFO Paranormal Radio and tag Amelia. It's the only place that you're going to be able to get a direct response. So if you haven't subscribed, please do subscribe. Show us a little bit of lovin's. So with that being said, don't forget we're on Twitch, we're on Twitter. We are, I believe, on the Outer Realm Facebook group page, as well as our station's group pages. So go on over, have a look, and thank you in advance. So, hello.
Yeah. Hi. I just want to say hi to Hakan. I want to say hi to Janie.
Hello.
Who are all posting there. I can see you in Facebook. I can see your comments. Thank you for joining us. Hello, beautiful Janie. Thank you for sharing us up on Instagram. I'm not sure if I told people that we closed that account. I may have just written it on there because I know people have been trying to share it, but it was such a chore to keep it up, and we just closed it down for now. We might look at reopening that later, but we have so many people on Facebook.
Hi, Mary. Yes, this is great. I love it. Everybody just chiming in. Love it.
Yeah.
Love it.
Cool.
Yeah. Well, I mean, happy to be here. We weren't really sure. I know Joe sort of handed over the reins and said, here's the passwords, worst case scenario, get up and get moving. So we do have a backup plan, but we're just really grateful that he and his family are safe and sound, and his little puplets, and that things are up and running. So it's business as usual, and you can't keep a good station down, and you certainly can't keep all of these fantastic shows from popping up every week. So that's that. So yes, so we're going to bring on Gretchen. Did you want to give a quick
let me get back to that page. We had her on before, and we talked about so many things. Gretchen is a member of the British Archaeological Association, and she has lived in the UK since 2002, giving her the unique opportunity to view historical Templar churches, commanderies, farms, and mysteries firsthand. She studied medieval carvings and the history of the Templars since the mid-1990s. So please welcome Gretchen Cornwall to our show. Please tell me she's there.
There she is. Hello.
Hello. Good evening. Good evening.
Gang's all here now.
Can you hear me? Is everything working?
Yes, perfect. Everything is fine. Joe got back, fired everything up, and then here we are.
Wonderful.
It is. So how are you out your neck of the woods?
Good. Vampiric hours. It's 2 a.m.
Sorry.
So sorry.
No, it's wonderful to have the chance to be here tonight with both you ladies. I had such a fantastic time when I was with you before. And earlier today, I finished watching Dr. Kathleen Ball and Sean Williamson with you.
Yeah,
and
that was a great show.
It was a great show. And I enjoy watching Carl Cookson and Hamilton White of Lost Relics with you.
Yes, thank you.
I
Thank
like
you.
to call you both the dynamic duo, and they're the dynamic
Oh.
duo as well.
They are. They are. But there's a
And you
really
have the
great group of you, you know?
Yes.
When you have the four of us together, though, it's kind of hard to stay on track because we're laughing too much. So
It's
need a little bit
really
on my
improvish and
end.
yeah, it's
I need
improvish and very unleashed, you know, very raw when you come on,
Unleashed.
because we really
Hilarious.
don't know where it's going to go. You know, Hamilton especially is so animated, and his face just hand goes across his face
Oh
like
my
he's just like,
gosh.
oh my God, what's
I just-
going on? So
I just love
he's a
him.
riot.
Just
They're
love
great
Yeah,
guys.
oh, he's adorable and so knowledgeable. They both
Yes.
They
are.
are.
Yeah,
And
very nice.
it's riveting. It's always exciting and riveting. And I just so admire what the two of them have managed to do for the world of Templar studies.
Yes. Yes, I agree. I agree. But you all have really, this is what we were saying on the show with Kathleen and Sean, that it's a great group because Wayne Murphy is on tomorrow evening. And we like how everybody has come together and formed this little posse. It's like, you know, it's
so
this amazing. It's this amazing group with all of these discoveries, all of this combined knowledge, and it's all coming together and it's benefiting one another.
Yes, and each of us has decades of information behind us. So add us all together, and I'm sure that we add up to hundreds of years.
Absolutely.
Combined.
Absolutely.
But Wayne has turned into quite the researcher and historian himself. He is a depth of knowledge when it comes to the Native American peoples on the East Coast, and because he is an elder, a tribal elder, doors open for him, but he's also benefiting from his years as a police officer and a detective. So it's quite unique and organic what's happening between all of us. And I appreciated it that Sean Williamson said that we really ought to have a conference, you know, and present our research for each other and with those who share our passion. So,
I agree.
Yes.
I agree. There's a lot of information out there, and people don't realize just how small this world really is when you start looking at the reach that the Templars had. And they're popping up all over the world, especially this side of the world. It's like, okay, now we're on to something. So it's exciting.
Absolutely.
And
a few years back, I had a few people say to me, this was 5-10 years ago, well, isn't that old news? Don't we know everything there is to know? And can't we just draw a line under this? Surely there isn't anything further to be discovered. And that is the farthest thing from the truth. If anything, this is mushrooming and growing, and it's insane how profuse the discoveries are becoming. And when you apply anthropology to the topic and also comparative religion, that opens even further doors. And when you understand the nature of human beings as well, they really weren't that much different than we are today as far as our needs as human beings are concerned.
Right.
So, you know, it's fascinating when you embrace these different ways of looking at history, such as reenactors today have helped us understand life. 800 years ago, 1,000 years ago, because they sew their own clothing, their own garb. They eat, drink, create their own dwellings. There is a Viking heritage group that honors their DNA background by living, at least on the weekends, as their ancestors had.
I think that's fantastic.
And it helps us to understand what life was like, by and large. It isn't perfect, it isn't easy, and we cannot comprehend how strict and formal our European culture was going back to the time of the Templars, especially where women were concerned. But oddly, there were women that had the capacity to leverage their wealth and their station, and also protect themselves from forces such as the Inquisition. Eleanor of Aquitaine was one of those, and she pretty well did what she wanted to.
Right, as it should be.
So yes, and I'm jumping around a little bit, but
it's okay.
And I certainly will beg forgiveness up front if I repeat anything that was covered in the last time that I was with you.
A little bit of recapping is fine. And I do want you to know Wayne Murphy is listening tonight. He's in chat on Facebook. Hello, Wayne.
Hi,
from all
Wayne.
of us. There we go. I thought you'd like to know that.
Yes, I'll be seeing you in a few days' time. It's going to be the closer to the hour it becomes, the more anticipation I'm feeling. I can't wait to get there and catalog what I know I missed last time, and also the new location that's been discovered.
Hey, Bradley.
So it's going to be exciting.
It is going to be exciting, and I know that it's very hush-hush for the moment, so we're happy to get any little bit of tidbit that we can get. So, very exciting.
I certainly don't want to cross over into, Wayne's conversation with you tomorrow. So I shall let him divulge what he wishes to tomorrow.
Yes. Yeah, we've touched on it a little bit, so we're just going to let him go, and whatever comes up. As you know, we're very laid back here on the Outer Realm. But I am very excited to talk about your other research and your other book. And I think for many people, obviously we're going to talk about Mary Magdalene, talking about a very powerful female presence within history that has been misunderstood, misrepresented. Get me going on that. That could be like a really terrible show.
4 hours.
I get a little volatile. Yeah. But, this is, I think it's the woman, the myth, the Grail that goes by many, many names. What prompted you to just up and decide, I think I'm going to research this? And how do you research something that it's really difficult to find evidence of?
Oh my, that question goes back many years for myself. I do classify myself as a Celtic Christian.
Right.
And that bears differences to other more populous branches in the world today.
Yes. Yes.
There are some 2 billion Christians in the world today. And amongst those high numbers are 35,000 different sects. So as someone that has studied comparative religion broadly, I can't even begin to tell you what all of those differences are, except that those adherents of those 35,000 different thoughts on the world's largest religion believe their what's been presented to them, or how believe their faith.
Mhm.
So, certain for myself, I have very strong feelings about Mary Magdalene, but I will never denigrate anyone else for their belief system,
Mhm.
nor am I here to change anyone's belief system. That is personal. It's up to them.
Mhm.
And at the end of the day, it is yourself that you must be present with as you exit this world until you're met on the other side through that
Oh,
process.
absolutely. And it's not a ditz at Christianity, because I definitely am not doing that. I'm just talking about
No,
the Catholic Church, which said, no, she's a prostitute. And recently, in the last, 5 to 10 years, come up and said, oh, no, she wasn't. So that's all
Yeah.
I'm talking about when I'm saying
Oh, no,
misrepresented.
for me, I always like to preface what I present
Okay,
with
perfect.
that. And the reason why is I have such a large family.
Yes.
And the breadth of the people in my family goes from extreme left to extreme right, and I love them all.
Of course.
And I have friends in my life that I value highly and I care about highly, and yet they don't think the way I do. And that's okay. That's okay. So that's me. Not, I am not offended by any stretch about what you ladies are thinking or saying to me tonight. We're going to agree on a lot of things here tonight.
Oh, absolutely. I have no doubt about that.
I always preface it with that.
Okay,
so,
fair enough.
That's just my broad blanket statement. But this is what I have found and what I think is true.
Okay.
And for myself, I went through quite a lot of soul searching, especially in the 90s. And I came across Holy Blood, Holy Grail, a very popular book that was one of the 5 books that was the foundation for the book, The Da Vinci Code. But it didn't strike a chord with me because it was written so forensically, in a journalistic and academic fashion. And of course, the main focus of attention, Pierre Plantard, he fell from grace, of course. As many of you know, he was found to be a bit of a charlatan. And that is the danger of putting all your eggs, as it were, in one basket. Humanity is fallible. But the interesting thing about him, it is that he was deeply connected with a lot of the secret societies in France and an antiquary specialist. So there's that saying, you can't have smoke without fire. So I'll leave it at that. But for myself, what happened is I came across Lawrence Gardner, and all of a sudden the subject came alive for me to the point where I ended up contacting his representative and ended up doing marketing work for him in the USA, for which I was quite privileged to have done so. Sadly, he passed too early from throat cancer. But one of the books that I would like to mention that was so profoundly interesting was called Realm of the Ring Lords, and features a woman named Melusine, who I'll discuss more soon. But Lawrence Gardner's work made Mary Magdalene human and real to me. And his academic standard, of course, is quite high. I do think he made a few mistakes along the way, but we all do. He invested way too much time in a man called Michael of Albany, who claimed to be the Stuart heir to the throne of England. And that is not correct. That's another big subject. But there is another individual out there. If there is a head of the House of Stuart today, it would be another individual. I can't remember his name, but he wrote a very, very good book about the subject. That Bonnie Prince Charlie in exile did have another family in France, and that he's descended from this man. Right. The other thing is that the illegitimate son of Charles II also had a son that was created the Duke of Monmouth. His family are still alive and active today. Forgive me if I'm waffling, but what most people forget is that the current queen is directly related to the Stuarts through Charles II's sister, who married the Hanoverian. So, if you're just talking about the male line, then of course the name ends, which is what through history has been dealt to women. It's basically a way to shrink the pool of competitors down, thinking about ascending to a dukedom or becoming a monarch, what have you, or inheriting the estate, that it always has to go through the oldest surviving male relative. Right. And that completely drops out of the picture any woman who is of the same DNA that may have been a better choice for that seat. So women through history always seem to get the short end of that stick.
I think both Elizabeths did very well, personally.
Oh yeah,
longevity and left their mark.
Powerful.
Especially
powerful,
very powerful, and especially the first one. She was certainly wise to surround herself with very, very loyal, intelligent, educated spy masters.
Yeah, Walsingham, John Dean.
Yeah. Well, when your father cuts off your mother's head, that's going to do something to you.
But I know she was so far ahead of her time. You didn't have women in battle. I mean, queen on the battleground was unheard of, and I just have so much respect for her in that sense of the word. She didn't do or ask anything that she wouldn't have done herself. So I have a lot of admiration for her there. She's a little strange. Not going to say she's not strange, but a lot of respect for her there.
Yes. But it's not to dodge your question, but Lawrence Gardner really did put Mary Magdalene into perspective for me. And I just became driven to find out, and very passionate to find out as much as I could, not only about her, but also the Knights Templar. And for me, it truly helped me explain my life.
Wow, that's profound.
It was that significant a turn for myself. It put everything into perspective for me. So my first book is a culmination of decades of reading, research, and I had enough material. I realized, I thought, I could write a book. And so I embarked on a 9-year project to do so. And the book, I always meant it to be a platform for other projects, because there is so much content in it, and I do cover a lot of ground, even going back to Atlantis as well. So certainly it is a tough read from what I've been told. there are several chapters on quantum mechanics that I wrote in order to try to persuade individuals who are of an atheist persuasion that God, the great divine, the creator, whatever you want to term, that does indeed exist. So I discovered that quantum mechanics does shine a light on that. So I embarked upon that in the book as well. And that we are truly all tied together by this web of it's quite a mystical thought, but we are all engaged in the same field of energy together.
Absolutely.
So
absolutely.
And what I found going back is that when you start looking at the history of how the Bible was written and rewritten and rewritten and rewritten, you have to look at who wrote it.
Right.
And what was their
Absolutely.
motivation?
Absolutely. Right.
What was their motivation? And you know, the world going back to 2,000 years ago, 1,900 years ago, etc., is very male centric, very violent, very difficult. Life was cheap, and in all truth, life is still cheap in a lot of the world, and so many of us are blessed to live in the Western world, where we can go about our business without being molested, basically, or have the right to do so. So I'm quite grateful for that. But the Roman Empire changed overnight when Constantine created Christianity as the legal Roman religion. In 325 AD, it became the legal religion, and then of course things swapped from pagans killing Christians to Christians killing pagans.
Of course, I know.
Of course.
It's a vicious cycle, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Just because people are people, human beings are the same.
Right.
It's you know, once you understand human nature, you can predict certain things are going to happen.
Right.
They're going to happen.
Right.
So, but his mother, Helena, was born in England, which not too many people know of, and he was born in England as well. But she could be considered the first archaeologist, and she actually went to the Holy Land and believes that she had discovered sacred objects, nails of the true cross, the spear of destiny. So she Saint Helena can be thought of as our first archaeologist, really. But certainly in the 6th century, Pope Gregory confused Mary Magdalene with another woman in the Bible, Bethany, apparently, and claimed that she was a prostitute, and that was a misconception, as you know. It's remained that way up until the 1960s, when that was reversed by the Catholic Church. And
a lot of people didn't know that until recently, that had been reversed.
And a lot of people still don't know that. And a lot of people still think of her as the repentant prostitute. But it served a purpose at the time. I don't think it was a benign or innocent thing to have done. going back to the earliest texts,
Mm-hmm.
You see this early conflict with Peter,
Right.
and a split within the church, if you will. It's so you're in a male-centric world, male-dominated world,
Mm-hmm.
and the Judaic culture was very, very strict. Interestingly enough, though, as you probably know, you ladies know, is that when it comes to the Jewish family, it's always traced through the mother. So the best thing to do if you want to erase a lineage is to get rid of the mother. That's the quickest thing to do.
Right.
So I believe that that's what happened at that time. As far as Christ is concerned, this doesn't affect him at all. I don't believe that this is a heresy at all. You look at the images from the Hubble telescope, you look at the immensity of the universe, that great creative force that holds that together, and we're just one small galaxy amongst innumerable galaxies in the universe, all dotted with suns and potential inhabited worlds with intelligent, races.
Mm.
How could a power of that magnitude be offended if his emissary, his son, had a full human experience on Earth, was married, had children? The only individuals that would be offended by that would be human beings.
Mm-hmm.
So I hope that it makes sense.
Oh, it does.
There's even an account of Mary Magdalene raising a woman from the dead in France.
Mm-hmm.
And when you start reading about the Dark Age saints as well, they're walking on water. They're charming fish. They're charming beasties. They are healing people. They're performing many of the miracles that Christ did as well. And he even said, "What I am doing, you can do too."
Mm-hmm.
So some of us might need a great deal of practice.
Right.
Um,
Right. No doubt. I don't see myself walking on water anytime soon.
So, don't take a long walk off a short
Just
pier.
what are you talking about? Are you kidding me? I took a jog right off the Lake Ontario. I just wanted to let you know Dr. Kathleen Ball was in the chat room, and she said, very good point, Gretchen. I agree. She says to say hi. She's loving the show. We had her on last week, and Gretchen did listen to the show, Kathleen.
I did. It was
excited to hear that.
Yes.
It was wonderful. I so enjoyed it, and learned a few new things from you, Kathleen, that I hadn't known, such as Templar descendants being murdered in Brazil. That's quite something. So I look forward to
so many centuries after.
Yes. Mm-hmm. So why? That's the big question.
Oh, it is. And the mystery continues.
Well, if a friend of mine quite some time ago, brilliant mathematician, did some number crunching, and if Mary Magdalene was married, had 3 children, which is one of the potentials, not just one, but 3, right, is that there would be a good 35 million people today alive from that marriage.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
And he was the oldest of 7 further siblings. So if they were blessed in some way with greater insight, if they also had families, then the potential for his progeny in Europe is quite strong, and in the Middle East. There is a I'm leaping around a little bit, but
that's okay.
It's okay. That's probably a conservative number too.
It very well could be, but if and it's difficult to translate how would war affect this over the centuries, illnesses, child mortality, all these issues that humanity is plagued with when it comes to lack of medical care. Even today, things can certainly go wrong, but there is the legend of especially in the Stuart dynasty, but I think that this is something that one can find in many aristocratic houses in Europe is the king's evil hands. And that is, and Elizabeth I, of course, would lay hands on people as she would process through to go to church on Sundays. She would pause and lay her hands on someone or a baby or whatever. And it's called the King's Evil Hands because there were instances of healing. There were instances of miraculous blessings. But the mindset that only Jesus can do these tasks thus makes that evil. Even though the energy impetus comes from that divine energy. So it's that medieval thought structure there. And you see that played out in the story of Melusine that I'll be speaking to you about here soon. But it's interesting if you do take it on board that after the crucifixion, she went in exile to Marseille, and then started her life there and her children marrying into the Merovingian dynasty, what would become the Merovingian dynasty. Then you can see how that bloodline would fan out into Europe.
Absolutely.
So it's a fascinating subject, and she is not supposed to exist as a bride, as a mother, and therefore it's considered a great evil, a great heresy. And therefore, anything special that her descendants may have been able to do, or traditions they're able to teach and pass on, is evil, according to those who tried to counter her existence in what eventually became the Bible, and that's changed over the centuries as well. It's not the same document that from 325 AD. It's not.
No, absolutely not. It's been altered a few times. I mean, Mary Magdalene herself was a healer, so she, in her own right, accomplished quite a bit.
Absolutely. And he wouldn't have been interested in just anybody. So there had to be a great deal of commonality there and understanding. And that is something that in the books that didn't make the final cut of the Bible we know today, she is often referred to as surpassing understanding. And that did upset the male disciples. And it is a bit of a shame, because what we really need in the world is that balance of energies from of male and female in divine union, not one aggressively above the other. And
It's only the Christian religion, though, that feels that way. I mean, you go back into paganism and Gnosticism, and they were very balanced. I think it's just when Christianity really came into play that balance shifted a little bit.
That's a difficult one. That's the Western world. But if you look at other cultures around the world, they have also been quite oppressive.
Mm-hmm. Some still are.
Oh yeah. So I think in all honesty, it comes down to that women lack that extra 20% muscle mass. And when we are pregnant, we're more vulnerable. And I think that it comes down to that. So unfortunately, but in the West, things are changing. Comprehension is growing. And I think men just would like to enjoy themselves more and be gentlemen with the ladies in their lives and embrace new information. There are a lot of amazing men out there, and it has surprised me at how the variety of men that have contacted me who are of Templar descent can trace their line all the way back to the Merovingians or to Charlemagne, and have no problem with this at all. And devout Christians as well, no problem. And it's just fascinating to see that play out. But I was so pleased that in 2016, Pope Francis did remind people that Mary Magdalene's liturgical day, if you will, of July 22nd is a feast day. So he raised her up through that action. And I think that was very telling. Indeed. I came across something that I'd forgotten about. It's been a while since I've looked at some of this material, but I just want to read this out.
Oh, yes, please feel free.
And this is from a document called the Pistis Sophia, and it dates to about the 2nd century, but it wasn't discovered until the 18th century. And this is a dialogue where Jesus is actually talking to his disciples, answering their questions. And at one point he says of her, Mary, thou blessed one, whom I will perfect in all mysteries of those of the height, discourse and openness, thou whose heart is raised to the kingdom of heaven more than all thy brethren. More than all thy brethren. And this continues. Mary Magdalene has gone down in history. Of course, this is not in the Bible, but in other Gnostic Gospels, where she says to Jesus, I am afraid of Peter. He hates my race, meaning women. And she's crying at that point. And there's another fragment. I've actually forgotten the name of the fragment, but I believe it's called the marriage fragment. But anyway, it is in my book. But it actually says, and he kissed her often.
Yes.
And then that proceeds, and the disciples say, why do you love her more than us? We're your biggest fans.
Yeah,
we're your guys.
First groupies ever, right?
Yes, exactly. And he says, come on, guys. Why wouldn't I? Yeah. Especially if she was his wife and counterpart. In order to become a rabbi, in that culture. Christianity didn't come out of the ground like that. He was born into a very strict Jewish world.
Absolutely.
And in order to be called a rabbi, one had to be married. And the expectation was that you would have children as well.
A 30-year-old man not married in that time would have been shunned. They would have thought something was desperately wrong with him.
Absolutely.
Really.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. So it's impossible that there wouldn't have been a bride. And of course, I'm sure you ladies know that the marriage of Cana was his wedding, and that it was the groom's responsibility to see to the wine. So he did.
That's right. That's right. And
I mean,
what did he ever?
What modern woman wouldn't want to have a husband who could turn water into probably the best glass of wine ever? So,
yes, indeed.
Yeah.
One you want to keep around, that's for sure.
Absolutely, you're gonna want to keep that guy happy.
Yes, exactly.
I wish I could remember the name of the painting, but it's hanging in the Louvre. It's huge. And it is the marriage of Cana is the subject. And it's the table, the celebration table, feasting afterwards. And the only two people looking out is Christ, who's seated next to his mother, and the bride, which is a few down, and beautiful blonde, which is neither here nor there. But they're both, these two people are, the bride and the hidden groom are looking out at us. Everyone else at the table is interjecting with each other. Mm-hmm. So, and this is a Renaissance painting. It's not medieval. And there is a long line, as you know, of paintings, of sculptures that hint at something wrong from the usual story. Mm-hmm. And that is a very interesting painting, The Marriage of Cana. A very interesting painting. Mm-hmm. So
there's lots of hidden messages in the paintings.
Yes. Leave it to the Renaissance to make her blonde, go so that she stands out even more. There's messages upon messages in that painting.
Yes, and blonde is bright. It's light. It's positive, angelic. And there is truly a feature of the human psyche where we all want to be able to relate to a God that looks like us. Mm-hmm. And whatever our genetic background happens to be, we visualize Christ or Mary Magdalene to perhaps look a little bit more genetically like ourselves. Mm-hmm. I know that there has been discussion that she had red hair. It's possible. One researcher believes that her mother came from southern France and that her mother had red hair, and that's possible. There's a village in China where every now and then you end up with someone with red hair, and that's due to Celts having walked all the way across Europe into China, and they stayed there, integrated, and they found their graves of the period, and we're going back centuries. Mm-hmm. But even today, you still get in that particular village people who are obviously of Chinese extraction with red hair.
I think it's fascinating.
So, yeah, very strange, very interesting.
It is. It is. So when people, everybody obviously goes to, and I think we can thank the Da Vinci Code for that. But looking, the Grail, the vessel that holds the blood of Christ, is basically what the movie leads you to believe. What is this fascination with the Grail? Why the buzzword? Why people all over the world are looking for this thing? And you've got, no, we've got it here at this church, and oh no, we've got it over here. What is it exactly? What's your perception of all of this?
Well, I think myself that it's multifold. I think that she obviously, the chalice is the symbol for a woman, and an upright sword, of course, is always the emblem of the man, and a very basic male-female symbol in alchemy is the upward pyramid triangle for male, or upside down triangle for feminine. You squish the two together and you get the Star of David.
That's right.
So
That's right.
yeah, so alchemy gets to be very interesting after a while, and a true geek fest, actually. You can go crazy trying to absorb and understand the symbols from that ancient practice. But what I will say is that also, so for my, it's a no-brainer that that's a symbol of the bloodline, and that each successive generation has a grail or a sword, and that blood gets passed down. And they're finding out more and more that your powerful experiences that your grandparents had can have an effect on your DNA. So if these individuals that were conduits of divine energy passed that down through the centuries, and helps, the inspiration that humanity is blessed with at times is truly world altering on a positive level, especially for those that are able to listen. And now we all have these capacities. We all do. We all have this capacity to listen. But when you have someone that powerful, and his companion was that powerful, and those healing gifts get passed down. So, and I do think that the Templars were part of that family pool, that they themselves were genetically tied to that, but those with martial capacities became protectors as well. Knights of the Holy Grail, King Arthur's whole, Knights of the Grail, protecting the lineage, and objects of power, of sacred value. Of course, it's an established fact that medieval churches and cities, towns were in the relics game. There are innumerable pieces of the true cross to make a forest of crosses. The same with body parts of John the Baptist, etc. So, as soon as a relic appeared and miracles started happening, then money started rolling in, and you could sustain the enterprise, because basically religion was the only game in town.
Right.
And nobility had to support it.
Right.
So, it was the power with which everyone's lives revolved.
Mm-hmm.
And was governed by.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah, I agree.
It's not to say there aren't grails. Author Graham Phillips, he may have come across, he thinks that he has found Mary Magdalene's alabaster jar. I think it's a great story.
Right.
It's a fascinating book, and a medieval knight who had been on crusade brought this back with him, and it was kept in the castle, I believe, in England for centuries. And he helped the descendant of that family to locate it. And testing results do show it to be from the Middle East and of a very ancient age. So I find that to be a wonderful story. Whether or not it really was, the family thought it was.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's unique, that a family over the course of
centuries
would protect an object.
Right, it's fantastic.
It's a great tale, a very romantic story. But I do think there are objects that have the imprint of energy on them from their owners. So
I agree, especially when you're looking at stone. We've talked about this with Sean Williamson, how stone does retain memory, frequency, like when he puts his energy into a piece that he's sculpting, it goes into it. How experiments have been done with stone where they've done recordings and they've picked up on voices and sounds from the stone. So I absolutely think that when you put your energy into something, even wood, something that is alive or once lived, that it can imprint.
Yes,
we are
it does.
Powerful beings, and right, many of the objects and on this planet. I say object. The tree is a living thing. Wood is a living thing. Stone, I truly believe, lives. If it can absorb energy, if it can emit energy, there's something with that.
Absolutely. And I'm sorry, Amelia.
No. You go right ahead. Don't worry.
The granite is I don't want to give too much away, but granite is quite powerful because it's a matrix that supports quartz crystal.
Right.
And there has been a study done on quartz crystal. They took, I don't remember the name of the study. I apologize, I don't recall those details. But they took quartz crystal, like 1 inch by 1 inch squares, and they were able to infuse it with information. And they surmised that they could put the entire contents of the British Library into a shoebox.
It's true. It's true.
So we're starting to remember the technology that was present 12,800 years ago, before a natural catastrophe hit and wiped out fragile technology that is remembered today as magic or legend, mythology. Thor's lightning bolts. More than likely a high-powered laser.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
But when you wed psychic capacity to technology, then we're in the realm of the Greek gods or Dark Age saints. So it's all so riveting and fascinating, and I'm sure that we'd all be thrilled just to sit in a castle for a few good weeks and have good long talks and
Over
drink
wine.
wine and
Over wine in a chalice that Hamilton's going to bring. But
yes.
but there's somebody in the chat in Facebook who says, Dave Petrella, hi Gretchen, Michelle, Amelia. The Grail is also referenced to the head and neck in the human body. You can see the same shape with the neck as the handle and the skull as the chalice. Great observation. That's
I like
interesting.
that.
Yeah,
I
thank
like
you,
that.
Dave. Yeah. I think that's fascinating.
You know, when you start thinking about the capacity of our brains and with the pineal gland and our capacity for inner vision, then we're past the starting gate, aren't we? Truly, that is a wonderful comment. Absolutely. Just for further historical content, I'm sure that you're aware that Mary Magdalene was accompanied to Marseille with a young woman named Sarah, or a girl, a junior person, and she's always been described as being dark or Egyptian. Now, Sarah in Hebrew literally translates as princess. So that's fascinating, and I do think that she was their daughter.
Yeah,
and
I've read that.
Yeah, this is an interesting concept when you talk about the Black Madonna. That's always in reference to either Sarah or of course Mary Magdalene. But it's even more interesting if you go back to the time of Moses. And of course, he was raised in the Egyptian household, trained by the Egyptian priesthood. And he walks out the door having bested the priests at every level. And he takes with him the Ark of the Covenant. And when you look at the Ten Commandments, they are almost line by line perfect with the Egyptian Book of the Dead, which is the handbook, if you will, if you are a Egyptian monarch or nobleman, you had to follow these guidelines and meet these guidelines in death, or you would not ascend to the stars, into the heavens, and become a star yourself. So I find that very interesting because there is the story of Isis, the main goddess of the Egyptians, who, when her husband Osiris was captured by Set, the adversary,
yes,
he was dismembered, murdered basically, and his body cast to all corners of the earth. And she spent goodness knows how long recovering his body. And in one instance, she disguises herself as a maid to gain access to a wealthy household to find one of his body parts. And she puts coal on her face. And she succeeds in resurrecting him, and then they have their son, Horus, who is the earliest known representation of a Madonna figure. So if you take that progression of some Egyptian concepts coming away with Moses and being wedded into Judaism, you end up with the Black Madonna through probably through Sarah, so it's an interesting progression of themes. So I did want to bring that up. And
that's a great story. Yeah.
And then of course, too, you end up with Jesus's birth and the story of the three magi.
Yeah.
The astronomers, astrologers, the alchemists. And he goes missing, doesn't he, for what, 15 years? And of course, there are legends all over the place as to where he might have spent some of that missing time. And perhaps it was with them. Certainly, the lore on the ground in England that he spent time here. And his means of travel was with his uncle, who was a metal trader, Joseph of Arimathea, in Glastonbury on known tin trading routes. So it gets interesting after a while. So that he was well schooled in the religious concepts of other lands, whether it was Buddhism or Druidism, and certainly the Essenes. It's an interesting picture, and I think that's where you start getting stories of in secret societies, for examples of alchemy, the godmen of Europe, or the god kings of Europe, as author last name Montgomery has discovered. So these were individuals who were passing down a tradition of alchemy, both in prayer, meditation, and also what we now know today as chemistry.
And this was part of I think maybe the sacred knowledge that even the Templars went to the Temple Mount for.
Absolutely. And came away with.
Right.
And verified.
Right.
So
it wasn't necessarily what everybody thinks. It was not a physical treasure, but it was the knowledge of Mary and Jesus and their movement, per se. Right? Sacred knowledge.
Absolutely. And I believe that they knew where they were going. They knew what they were looking for, and that this was a secret mission that Bernard de Clairvaux, who rescued the Cistercian order and also was a main mastermind behind the Knights Templar as well. And, 9 knights in an unknown order don't just simply gain access to Temple Mount on the palace grounds, access to the king, prime real estate. So there was definitely something going on. And
you need a connection for sure. And wealthy men don't give up their wealth to go treasure hunting. There has to be something much deeper to that.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
So no, I think it is. It's fascinating, and I think the whole mystique behind Mary Magdalene, and Jesus. There's so many questions. Like, did he die on the cross? Did he go on? Obviously, because they had 3 children, right? So there's people have those questions, but it's almost like they're they ask them or they're afraid to ask them. There's a lot of really mixed information out there. But at the end of the day, there's this bloodline. And there are these group of men who fought and died to protect this knowledge and this lineage.
At great cost.
Why?
To themselves.
You know?
Yes, indeed.
Yeah.
And I've been, I was just looking at the clock to see how we were doing, because I don't want to miss a few points. I can't share images with you tonight, but I've been fortunate to find a few documents that I believe are pivotal, that prove that she was venerated. And one of them was an illuminated document created in the 1100s by an abbess who was in charge of an abbey that was founded by a Merovingian princess, which is good fun. Oh. And that's 10 miles down the road from a town in Germany called Magdeburg. And the symbol for this town is a maiden holding the sword of truth aloft and a palm branch in her other hand, and she's standing on a tower. And of course, Magdalene literally means tower. And you'd have to be a tower to handle what she did in her life. You'd have to be.
Absolutely.
But let's see, where did I put that?
Well, while you're looking for that, we're going to actually do a station ID, and that way we can.
We are. Right now, you are listening to The Outer Realm with Michelle Desrochers, myself, Amelia Pisano. Tonight's guest is the fabulous Gretchen Cornwall, all the way from the UK. With us tonight, we're talking all about Mary Magdalene. We're not sure if we're live in New Orleans, but New Orleans, you're in our heart and in our prayers and our thoughts after Hurricane Ida. That's 105.3 FM. We're thinking of you and we love you. We're streaming live on UFO Paranormal Radio, UFO Gods and Extraterrestrials, International Public Radio, UPRN Talk Radio. And we are fully sponsored every night that we are on by the amazing people at Folgers Coffee. Folgers, thank you. You know we love you, and no one loves you more than Michelle and I. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, the stage is yours once again, uninterrupted.
All right. Now, this is a document that's called the Hortus Delicarium, and it is what I term to be a medieval tracing board, but it is of the 7 liberal arts. And of course, that goes all the way back to Greece. But the central figure is a woman, Sophia, which means wisdom, literally. And some might say the wisdom of Christ, Sophia. But this document, this work of art, shows a woman on a throne and 7 rays of knowledge coming from her heart center. And there is a banner in the shape of the letter M, and the muses around her in a circle. And you can see this in my book, fully illustrated at GretchenCornwall.com. I do have signed copies and personalized copies available as well, but this drawing is coded, and the figure of geometry is holding up a huge compass, the type that has a pencil or a pin in one end. You pin it down, you draw a circle, and she's also holding a staff, but her skirt is also involved, and it forms the letter M. The figure of arithmetic is counting a string of beads that number 22, her feast day. And Astronomia is holding a jar and pointing to the stars in the sky, what looks to be Cassiopeia in the night sky. And of course, Cassiopeia is goes back to Greek mythology, but she was the mother of Andromeda. She's often been called vain because she angered the gods. And she's often seen with a mirror, a hand mirror. But this is misconstrued. When someone is depicted as looking into a mirror, it isn't vanity, it's self-reflection. Know thyself. Get to know yourself. But so here you are. This medieval illustration appears to be depicting Mary Magdalene sitting on the throne of heaven as Cassiopeia and revolving around the North Star, which is Christ, her husband. Flash forward, I found a star chart, approximately 1625, commissioned by the Holy Roman Emperor and created by a man named Julius Schiller. And he replaced the Greek mythology with Christian iconography. And he replaced Cassiopeia with Mary Magdalene. And that is also in my book. And she is holding her alabaster jar and a scepter in her hand. And she has the same expression on her face as the Mona Lisa. And I'm convinced that Julius Schiller saw the painting and knew about Leonardo da Vinci and knew about the Last Supper. In the star chart, Jesus's mother, Mother Mary, is not in this document. So why is the Mother of Christ not in the document? That is very interesting. Now, I have yet to find the cause of his death, but the year this came out, he also died shortly after. Now, whether or not that's a coincidence, I don't know. But my mind always tends to think foul play when we're talking about something of such a high stake. So here are two pictorial works of art, one that was completed in the 1100s and one in 1625, both depicting her as Cassiopeia, replacing Cassiopeia as the main focus of the night sky. As the chair revolves around, as the throne revolves around the North Star. So it is very interesting. It's very interesting.
Dave says July 22nd, right between Leo and Cancer, which is right between the sun and the moon, a very good place to be in astrology, the perfect balance between the masculine and the feminine energy. And he also makes note to the human head again, amygdala, which is actually Magdalene.
Perfect.
It's interesting. I love hearing the different perspectives of this. And he's on Facebook, so he's not on YouTube here.
Yeah, even the Cathars, which were of course were the subject of the Albigensian Crusades, were believed that there was a marriage there, and that was notated down by a Cistercian scholar. But I appreciate these comments. They're very insightful and adds a layer of meaning to the evening. And I appreciate the comments and you listening and participating with us tonight. So I just want to say thank you.
Oh, it's active in chat right now.
Thank you.
Yes.
But I did want to put those two items out for you.
Thank you.
but the illustrations are in my book, and grateful that I was able to come across these documents. So,
well, thank you for sharing them. That's wonderful. It gives a different insight.
It's exciting. No matter what you think of her or what your faith system is, individuals in elevated positions venerated her. So it's interesting to discover how that took place, and how that got passed down.
I like to think evolution, karma. I like to think that people, even within these specific positions, keep evolving and educate themselves. And, you can't keep going on with knowledge that is so old. We talked about this, many times with yourself before, and Carl and Hamilton and Kathleen. You end up coming across discoveries that the academic world or the archaeological world does not want to acknowledge, and that goes for the system, the church, the same. You have the good old boys club, and they don't want to veer from it. They don't want to change history. It's too expensive. It basically makes them look bad. Nobody wants to do that. It doesn't change the fact that it's a thing and that it has happened and the discoveries are real.
Indeed, right? Indeed. And I so appreciate this Pope for acknowledging her. And I think he's a good man. I think he's truly trying. And one of the misconceptions is that the Pope, all he has to do is press a button, and the millions of individuals around the world will respond. I'd like to correct that. Basically, there are many churches within the umbrella church, and you cannot, they operate almost independently. And that's where you get problems with predators. And unfortunately, you still hear story after story after story. And I'm sure that the men and women around the world who are loving adherents of Catholicism just groan when another victim comes forward and says, I was attacked at church when I was a child, or somebody's been discovered to be attacking children, and they're protected by the cell,
institution,
the small institution. So it's difficult to turn a huge tanker like that around. And this might rub some people the wrong way, but I would like to see the Pope have a married partner and have children, because it would be a more complete and real human experience. And that's not to denigrate somebody that would like to be celibate, to focus on their own inner path as expressed in union with the all that is. That's different. But when you force human sexuality into a particular box, the Victorians were famously repressed, but all sorts of things were going on all the time. Because humanity,
Victorians, yes, that's absolutely. They were a movement.
Absolutely. Yeah. So it would be as blasphemous a comment as that may seem to some. It would take the steam off of some of the problems. And the Pope is actually calling for married priests in South America because they don't have enough of them, celibate ones, to go around. So, that indicates a practicality problem, that humanity is always humanity, no matter whether or not you have a doctrine for a large group of people or not. And, we have to acknowledge the practicality of human behavior. So
I just want to intercept here a little bit, because I work missing children, and I work child molestation. I have family who has passed away from it and who were murdered. And I want to just say, after years of study, and if you want to start somewhere in pulp culture on a great documentary, you start with the film Spotlight, that cast that plays everybody as a real person and true stories, cut their salaries down to almost nothing to create this film. Priests are not child molesters. Child molesters enter the priesthood. I was raised Roman Catholic. I don't exactly practice it, but I still have a lot of Catholic beliefs. And I can't make that clear enough. I don't agree with the Vatican, with what they do, with how they cover on any of this up. I wasn't raised like a typical Roman Catholic. My mother always believed that priests should be married and have families, because she could never understand how they could counsel families and married couples when they didn't have the experience themselves. And my mother had family who were bishops and cardinals and had a lot of higher ups in the church. And I was also raised to know and understand that Mary Magdalene was stripped of power and that she was Jesus' wife. I wasn't raised to believe that she was a prostitute. I'm very fortunate that way, that my mother had eye-opening because of her upbringing and understanding in theology because of her uncles. I think it's really important that we look at this, and I understand why this institution does what they do when they hide it. It's wrong. I'm not agreeing with it, but it's because they come from that old, antique, ancient belief that they're not the ones to judge, God is. So you have to really look at it from a theological perspective, a criminal perspective, and then personal. And I always say, the one thing, the commonality between child molesters is their employment is always, if not 100%, always around children. It's always about the accessibility to them. And that is no different with the priesthood. And it's not just the Catholics, it's just they're getting raked over the coals because of the Vatican. But it happens with any leadership, teachers, coaches, all kinds of things, like all kinds of careers. Anywhere where there is access to children. So I think that's an important point to put out there. And if you're going to send me hate mail, go right ahead, because I can take it. I have a thick skin. But I've been doing that study for years. So
yeah. I agree with you. And I want to apologize to you, Amelia, if I at all sounded like I was throwing out the baby with the bathwater. I agree with you 100%.
Thank you. Not at all.
There was an instance with the gymnastics team where the doctor was, and he purposefully went into that area so that he could have access to young girls, gymnasts. So you're absolutely right. And I'm not out to see any faith destroyed. I like this Pope. I have many friends who are Catholics, and I respect them. Mm-hmm. And it's a wonderful religion. It is, and that's where respect comes in. And Amelia, I respect you.
Oh my gosh, I was not
your positivity
with you at all.
No. And I'm glad you said it that way, because that's something I have often thought, and that is an important distinction. It's an important distinction. And I have seen firsthand, granted separated by hundreds of years, the destruction of battles between, the Huguenots and the Catholics, and in France, entire towns and villages completely wiped off the map. I went to, mid-southern France in 2018 to look for the Templars there, and there wasn't much left after Cardinal Richelieu got done blasting it to pieces. But that was on the heels of the Huguenots coming in and blasting everything to pieces. So what is happening now in Afghanistan, that was happening in France 400 years ago, and obliterating information that I wish we had now. But these wars of religion don't serve, and they don't serve God.
Very sad. No,
the wars of religion do not serve the
a
great
man-made institution is of that sort is usually for control.
Yes.
You
Always
just look
for
at
power.
things like the Library of Alexandria, for
Yes.
one. They're meant to destroy, and the Afghanistan situations are different. Taliban's done this before. They destroy the past. And I know it's a cycle that happens all over the world, even today, that you want to undo the wrongs by destroying traces of those wrongs, the evidence of them. But it doesn't make it, again, it's like those discoveries we were talking about that people want to bury. It doesn't make them less real. They happened, they existed.
Yes.
I don't think you should commemorate, let's say, a bad time, a historical event in time, but to eradicate it or erase it doesn't make it go away. I think you just have to learn from it and hope that it never repeats itself.
Cancel culture is that's a whole other show. But no, Gretchen, thank you so much for bringing it up, because I always feel this need, and I'm not defending them. I always feel this need to bring that up because I've worked the cases, and a lot of people don't understand the difference between a pedophile and a child molester. A pedophile is one who likes to watch, doesn't engage, and they will sell children or move children along, to other priests or other coaches or whatever it is, where a child molester engages and escalates with every crime. So eventually they're murdering people. This is a huge problem in the church. I agree with that. They have to come to not just marriage. There's got to be some kind of better system on psych evaluation for them, because they're obviously missing something, because they're so desperate to put priests in. They're overlooking and closing their eyes to something, because there's got to be signs. If I can find them as profiler, you can find them bringing them into seminary,
There's some really good comments by Kathleen and Wayne in the chat based on what we're talking about. Do you want to?
Sure. Thank you.
Okay.
Actually, I got it on my phone. It's a lot easier to see. Kathleen says, the big question is, again, why is it so important to completely destroy any evidence of Templars of bloodlines? It always indicates to me a tremendous amount of fear of the truth.
Mm-hmm.
And
I agree.
Wayne says, but if we destroy our history, future generations are destined to make the same mistakes. I totally agree with that.
I totally agree with that also. Two good points. Two really good points. It's true.
Cancel culture is just, it reminds me of this generation. Everything is disposable.
Hmm.
The church is afraid of the truth. Truth is powerful. The leaders do not want to have the people knowing of this power and knowledge. That's from Wayne Mallows. I agree with that as well.
That's true. But that's
really
any organization that has power, really it is.
Yeah.
I think that the history is important. And if it all gets destroyed and there are no traces of it, or it gets altered, because the church is well known for altering or omitting,
the Bible.
You can't put everything in the book, I suppose. But the thing is that they are known for that.
The Ethiopian book is probably a quarter of the size larger than the Bible that we have here in the West.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to get this wrong, but I believe it has 86 books.
Wow.
And of course, Ethiopia is one of the oldest Christian nations in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And there are some incredible buildings there created by Templars, equilateral churches that were carved out of the ground and are flush with the ground, that go down, carved out of solid stone.
Mm-hmm.
But there are many mysteries in Ethiopia. They claim to have the Ark, but they have a larger Bible there. So
they've kept it. The point I'm saying is, if you destroy it, then people like yourself have to go around and really dig to try to find that history again, because it's been lost
And
or
it's
hidden.
expensive too.
It is expensive, absolutely.
I have a question for you, Gretchen, because I would love to see this for you. What would you do if you were granted access to the Vatican library and their locked up vaults, which are real, not just the Da Vinci Code? What would you
Oh, yeah.
look for first if you were given
That's a good
the
question. There's a
day?
lot of goodies
What
in
would you
there.
look for? It's
Yeah.
like, I know what I'd be heading for, but I'm curious. What would be the thing that comes to you saying, I
It would
need
have
to
to
see
be
this?
practical. I cannot read ancient Aramaic.
I know.
Nice.
So
I know.
it would have to be a practical scenario. I don't know.
What if we give you a translator? How's
I
that?
was just thinking a
What
translator.
if we give you a translator? Yeah. You know,
I'm there.
Mel Gibson's writer for Passion of the Christ.
There
We
we
bring
go.
him in.
I'm there. I'm there.
And he asks you, Gretchen, my darling, what do you want me to read you?
I would go back as far as they've got to the earliest sources that they have.
Hmm.
I wish that for you. I really do. I think you
I
know
would.
exactly what to do with it.
In the meantime, and this is perhaps even just as difficult, large museums like in New York City, here in the UK, in London, they only have generally a quarter of what they actually own on display at any one given time. And I would love to see what they have in their vaults that is of the medieval era, from the families that were associated with Knights Templar. I do think that some of this is simply ignorance and a bit of hashing things up, that they don't know what they've got, objects that they don't know what they have. They don't know what it means.
That's a good point.
They don't know how to interpret it. So it's, maybe it's an object has never even seen the light of day. It's considered perhaps insignificant in some way, or they just simply have so much they
Or
can't
maybe
put it on
it's just
display.
hidden. Look at what the Smithsonian did with bones of giants.
Yeah, exactly.
And
Exactly.
the indigenous people saying, no, that's nobody we know. Definitely none of our people.
Yes.
And the Smithsonian got a hold of it and destroyed them. And now they have some
Well,
hidden.
There's
what
that
else
too.
have they destroyed?
Yeah,
Right?
Well, life gets messy when you start looking. I'm, long story short, about 10 years ago, I started noticing astronomers and physicists saying that it is impossible that there are not worlds out there that are uninhabitable. We are not the center of the universe. We're not.
We're not.
And there are
no.
habitable, intelligent
Yes,
species out there.
I agree.
And it suits for myriad reasons for the average person not to know this. But if you listen to what scientists are saying, the language is growing, that we're not alone. So, and as Michelle, as you said in the last discussion with Dr. Ball and Sean Williamson, that Leonardo went missing and he came out of the cave literally and started painting.
But knowledge, doing all of these
other worlds,
calculations. Yes, exactly.
He was a mathematician after that. Yeah.
2 weeks. Yeah, he went missing.
So, it's a big world out there of which we're an important cog, but we are not the center of the universe. That doesn't mean that we are not impossibly, insanely loved by the all that is. I put my toe in that pond once, and I went in for a appendicitis surgery, and the afternoon that I realized I was in trouble, I was at my desk at work, and everything changed. I felt intense almost overwhelming love. I've never felt it since. Perhaps close to it, but not since. But everything around me was infused with gold.
Wow.
And I knew I was in trouble, and I knew I was dying, and I was given a choice to stay or I could go, and it would be okay either way. But I didn't want to upset my family. I wanted them to, I was 30. So I called, no, it was 1997. So I called my sister and was in surgery that afternoon. But, you know, I know we are all insanely loved. And that's important for us as human beings to grapple with when we think about other potential civilizations out there that may have more technology than we do at this juncture in time.
Absolutely. So, many people believe that, though, many of those civilizations are already here and have been here the whole time.
Indeed.
Our mountains, our oceans, cave systems, down the volcanoes, everywhere. Everywhere you see them spewing out of. I have a friend in the south of France, and on a couple of occasions, he has sent me photos of a UFO. Right, one was right near Mont-Seigneur, and what was the other one? Not far. It was just within the Languedoc area, and it's just like he just came out of meditating, and within 2 hours he was up. You know, it's just click, there it is. And he brings groups up, and a couple of years ago it was the same. He's taking a picture of this woman, and all of a sudden there it was, and he took a picture. These are power spots. These are locations that attract. You know, and not just us. There are others who are attracted to these amazing places.
Indeed.
It's insane. It's insane. I would so love to see you in that Vatican vault. I honestly believe you would be the perfect person to go in there. I really do. I adore you. But I think it would be perfect.
It would be an honor. I tell you, it would be an honor. And I respect their scholarship. They have their own observatory. They're amazing scientists. They are very aware of current science, and I
have a supply of research money. They don't have to wait for grants. They have that privilege. That
they do.
Keep going.
They can end world hunger with 2 paintings, but they've also got all the works of Dante Alighieri there. They have so much in there. I think people don't realize how wealthy the Vatican really is. There's a reason why they have their own police. There is a reason why it's their own entity, their own country. I mean, the Italian Roman police can't even step on Vatican grounds. So for the theorists out there who believe that something big happened, Roman police went in there to contact Vatican police, it simply doesn't work that way. You cannot cross your border. They also don't realize how many scholars they have there. They just think, oh, they're cardinals or I'm like, no, they have extremely intelligent people.
Oh, I respect. Yes, they do.
Intelligent astrology, everything to do with aliens, ufology. It's also, you want someone to translate Aramaic for you? I bet you there's got to be a dozen of them in there who can do that because they have to, and they've studied everything that's in there. Just we don't have access to it, which is so sad. It really is so sad.
Yes, and of course the mystique grows as well because we don't know. But relic hunting, and that's another reason I respect Carl and Hamilton. They're both very modest about it, but it is a dangerous game to be involved in, and books, medieval books, they have been scouring Europe for centuries, acquiring objects, acquiring texts from wherever they can get them from, and squirreling them away. And there was an incident which is very interesting. Napoleon actually raided the Vatican And he took the library, or as much of it as he could, and carted it away and took it to France. On the way, 3 cartloads were lost in a mountain pass. Now, that could be true. On the other hand, I like to think that maybe somewhere in Paris, or a noble family associated with Napoleon at the time has documents that should be in the Vatican. All of these items were returned except for 3 cartloads. So that's interesting.
What was in the cartloads?
How many secret societies have obtained documents and books over the years, and we don't know anything about it. So we don't know what's really missing. There's so much that's true. There's such an amazing mystery to that. I would just love to walk in that vault for a day.
But even before that, the Library of Alexandria had even more. The knowledge, the scrolls, many libraries throughout the ancient world were loaded with information, but that one, before its destruction, by who? Yeah, that's right, church. So, there's information there. Yeah, it just burned to the ground.
I wonder how much of it they took out, though, just to have control.
I don't know. Look at what the Taliban has done, or those of like mind, ISIL, whatever. They blasted these massive Buddha statues.
Except the one they couldn't find.
Work of art. I mean, it might not be your faith, but it's a work of art. And I was so upset when that happened. And they blew, was it Palmyra, the city, the ancient city? I'm mispronouncing it, but that was devastating. How dare they? How dare they? Who gave them that
sleeping right? Buddha, though. They didn't see it behind the rock.
Well,
they found that with radar technology. Yeah. But there still are ancient worlds, ancient places that have that information.
Yes,
absolutely. Kathleen made a really good point. She wrote that this was earlier, and it fits right now as well. So it was meant to be there. Of course, unfortunately, that's human history, but many have managed to survive and will continue to do so. It's impossible to destroy everything. People have things. I have to agree with her on that. I just really, really believe deep in my soul that there are things in secret societies that they are holding on to. Maybe for our better and greater good. Who knows?
Look at what was hidden to be saved. Look at the Tamar hoard. That was hidden to be saved. And they got it. It's like
might not be in our
saved
lifetime,
destruction.
Yeah. I agree.
That's a really big thing. I
just hand it to Carl and Hamilton for having the insight to chase that down. 10 years of acquiring those objects. Wow.
I know. And it was at a great expense, both emotionally, financially, mentally, everything that went behind it. But, it is a gift. It is a gift to the world. The fact that they've shared it,
They were chosen.
They were. Things seem to, find them. And in the same respect, as great of a gift as it is, it's also a burden. Because you can't put a price on it. And therefore, what do you do with it after the fact? Hamilton's like, I'm going to die one day. Then what? I'm just like, I know, talk like that. But it's a fact.
That's a huge responsibility. It really is. And the fact that they were able to bring all that stuff back without a pirate.
One at a time, man.
Seriously,
hunted down piece by piece. So it's crazy. But it's just an example of the fact that there are things out there that are still hidden to be protected. We talk about like the Ark of the Covenant, for example. I remember seeing some literature about a man who discovered a cave. He discovered something not on the Temple Mount. It was away from the Temple Mount, underneath. And he took a video and photographs in this dusty, rubbled, covered cave or tomb, and it clearly showed what looked like an Ark of the Covenant. And he applied to have it excavated, and it was denied and buried. They didn't want to even touch it. The Israeli government went, no, no, we don't want to go down that road. And there is a video, and you can go on YouTube and you can find it. It's
wow.
Was it
I didn't know
fear?
that.
Yes. Sorry.
Okay, because
there's pictures of it. I on one of the Gray Zone show research that I did for another show. I found it, but I found it years ago. I went hunting for it again and found it again. And the man, he's died. I think this was like in the 60s or 70s. He has since passed, if I'm not mistaken, now. But there were people, like his family and researchers of the time, and they're just like, they just wouldn't give permission to excavate it. It was sealed up again, and that was the end of that. So some people believe, though, that there were more than one because there was like some form of a reactor. They were.
I think that's the case. I think there was more than one.
I think so too.
I think Moses took that technology out of Egypt,
yes.
And they were repeatable objects.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't mean that they did not have a divine element to them.
Mm-hmm.
Just because a piece of technology is technology doesn't mean that it was not divine as well.
What makes it divine to our ancestors? The chariots of fire in the sky could have been a craft. Divine could have been extraterrestrial technology that would have been very divine to a more primitive people. How do you interpret? I think it comes down to perception and interpretation. That, of course, is just theory. It doesn't make it that much less of a divine experience to the people of the time. This would have been, wow, it would have been phenomenal. I'd be like, wow, or even now in this time, knowing better.
Yes, I think it's of value to consider that more advanced technological races could have highly developed intuitive skills, psychical skills as well.
Sure.
And
Absolutely.
that is certainly of a divine nature, or could be interpreted that way. And we could spend hours talking about angelic visitations of the modern world. So you get these power beings, disincarnate beings that interact with our mundane world.
Absolutely.
It's quite the mess, isn't it?
It is. It's very profound. It doesn't make the experience anything less.
Absolutely.
Just because there's no understanding of it. It's what the understanding was of the time. I think that there's still a lot that gets misinterpreted. There's still a lot that will always remain hidden from us, as a people. But I think as people evolve and ask more questions, and one day you wake up and there's going to be someone that's going to be just like you, and it's going to say, you know what, I want to know more about this. This really touched me. And I'm going to go out and I'm going to look for it. Or you're going to have another Kathleen Ball going, you know what? Is this what I think it is? And they're going to delve into it. There are explorers in each and every one of us. And I think every now and then there's a little Gretchen and a little Kathleen and a little Hamilton and a little Carl running around going, yes, we're going to do this.
Amelia, or Sean Williamson.
We'll offer you a platform to bring it all to life.
I believe that some things are not meant to be found. I don't believe that everything is meant to be found. It's just me because of what I do with my mediumship. And sometimes you're just not meant to know, and you're meant to live a certain way because it's just your path. And maybe perhaps another generation or two down the road, it'll be revealed. Like, why hasn't anyone else found this Tomar hoard? I have, I don't know, 30 friends that are Portuguese. You know what I mean? They all know that they were there, and they know they have stories in the villages. It wasn't new to them to hear it. But I mean, none of them ever came across this. You think about it, they're chosen. There's a divine right timing with this. I really believe all of that. And I do believe some of it is not known for our greater good. And that's coming from whatever's up there in the sky trying to protect us.
Well, it's not about one individual, it's about all of us.
Yeah.
So I like that, Amelia, and you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
I like it. So we're nearing, of course, the end of the show, and this is where you tell everybody how to find you, what you have coming up. Just promote yourself.
Thank you. I do appreciate that. I do have, as you can see behind me,
yes,
I do have books available for on my website, GretchenCornwall.com. And I am on Facebook if you'd like to follow me there. But Christmas is not too far away, if I may say so. But I send out personalized and signed copies in gift bags, paperback, hardback, my first book, my second book. And I am working on a book that was inspired by Zena Halpern's map of Oak Island.
Yes.
I went to Chateau de la Rochefoucauld and took copious photos. Sorry, I'm getting tired, but the Leonardo da Vinci staircase, followed up more on Melusine's story. And I have a book coming out about that. I made the discovery of the lower right-hand corner of the map that I found the historical person mentioned there, the young lion of Talmont, as Lord Tors of Talmont Castle. And the year 1347 that Zena has pegged to her map fits his date. So that is actually on my website. So I've discovered that individual and why that's relevant. So I'm hoping that book has been delayed. I took a hiatus to look after my mother for over a year during lockdown. So now after I come back from visiting and investigating the Mohican Reservation locations, which I believe are Templar in origin, I will be commencing with that as well. So lots to do, for which I'm grateful and happy to be involved with. So it's a privilege.
Absolutely. And we will be with Wayne Murphy tomorrow evening, and hopefully he'll divulge a little bit more. But thank you for joining us yet again. It was a pleasure to have you. It's just always such a joy to have on. And
thank you.
Yeah,
I adore talking to you both. It really does feel like a conversation. It truly does, and engaging.
I love you so much because I learned so much.
I love you too.
Thank you for being up for us tonight in our audience.
I wasn't going to miss it. I wasn't going to miss it.
We'll have that glass of wine together soon.
I would love that. We don't communicate too much, but when we do, it feels like no time has passed, and it's just delightful. So.
Well, we were talking about maybe next year, because we're already booking, into the first quarter of the year, but maybe doing a Team Templar North America sort of thing. So
that would be so fun.
I think it would be fun. Yeah. It would be. So
we have a new member
around if we can make it work, because we have
a new team member too.
That's right, and he was saying that. So we're going to wait and see how things transpire, how things go, and we're going to go from there and try to connect this side of the pond with this side of the pond, and see what we can make happen. So. Who can stay up, who can't, and that sort of thing.
We may need an extra hour, though.
I know.
Indeed, we'll
an extra hour.
Excited and talking over each other because we can't contain ourselves.
We'll keep it organized. We'll keep it organized, but it'll be fun. We try to give you guys as much time to speak as possible, so we'll give everybody that opportunity. But thank you again for joining us, and I'm really looking forward to see what you come up with, and your connection with the North American Templar research is going to be quite exciting. But for now, we have to bid you adieu, and thank you again for joining us. Yes, Amelia.
Sorry,
What?
there's one guest that Mary Glenn
Oh,
said, I
late
have
bloomer.
learned so much from your show tonight. Please have Gretchen on again when she makes her trip back to the US.
Well, maybe we'll
That's
have
nice.
her
We've
come
got a new
back on with.
fan.
Yeah,
Thank you so much.
We'll definitely look at doing that maybe
Thank
as
you.
a
I
group
appreciate it.
also. All right, darling. Thank you.
All
And
right.
good night.
Everyone. Take
Happy
care.
slumber. All right.
You too.
Thank you. Thank you. Good night.
Good night, darling. Well, we have come to another fantastic segment here in the Outer Realm. Thank you to everyone who tuned in. Big thanks to everybody in chat. You guys are really awesome. You make the show that much more fun. So thank you, of course, to Gretchen Cornwall, who's just delightful as always. Joe Montaldo, who is really literally the best producer on the planet, and he's a superhero right now because we are live. Big thank you to Folgers Coffee for sponsoring us. We love you. We appreciate you. And thank you for having that faith in us to take us on. Remember to stop by International Public Radio, UFO Paranormal Radio, and UFO Gods and Extraterrestrials. I think it's just going to start rolling off my tongue now. I'm used to it. Please get over there, subscribe, head on over to the Outer Realm on Facebook. You'll see that we are broadcasting live on there this evening. Also, if you'd like to contact us, whether to complain, whether to tell us you love us, our guests, you have a guest in mind, maybe you want to be a guest, just message us at the outerrealmcontact@gmail.com. Again, the outerrealmcontact@gmail.com. And tomorrow night's very exciting for us because we welcome here for the very first time Mr. Wayne Murphy, who's a retired police officer. He's got a list this long, Mohican elder, which is fascinating because he's just very knowledgeable about the folklore and legends of his community and his people. He will briefly give us some insight into a very special find that he came across, which is a Templar site. And I'm going to leave it just right there, but it's right here in North America. It's not up to me to share that information at all. Until then, Amelia and I thank you. Have a good night. We will see you tomorrow evening.